welcome. How y'all doing? Doing good? Okay, we have three great gifts for you tonight. Adam, the first one is Start With Why by Simon Sinek. It's a book about finding purpose in your career and in your life. We have the second book is How to Build a Business that Warren Buffett will buy. And it's the R.C. Willey story. It's a great little book, a great read. And the third book is Main Street Entrepreneur by some hack author. It's actually a phenomenal product for insomnia. If you're having trouble sleeping at night, that's the book you want to pick. So it'll just put you right to sleep, okay? Okay, so we need three people. Three people come up. Tell us what you learned last week from Danielle Nelson, and you'll get to pick one of these books, okay? So, okay, you first. Who else wants to come up? Okay, you next, and then you, okay, third. Tell us your name.
So my name is Derek. I'm majoring in finance right now, and the biggest thing I learned was the priority that she put on for employees. That if you take care of the employees, and they'll take care of you, and then that was really helped build the business, because as they progressed, that really helped them when they branched out. They had loyal employees that were willing to help them to grow the business. So.
Amazing. Thank you. So you can take your pick over there. That's a great point. I thought it was amazing that she said of her 9-person executive team, 7 of them started as early store managers. So one of the things you want to do, if you don't have a business idea yourself, but you want to join a startup, find a team and join that team and perform well, and you can grow on an entrepreneurial team in a startup, but you don't have to be the founder, okay? Who's next? Come on up. Give us your name and what did you learn?
My name is Cameron. I learned that our path is unknown. Well, that's kind of a given, but she talked about how it will always have pivots and turns, but we need to just always take the risks in business. She didn't know where her path was going at all with her phone company, but it continued to progress and get bigger and bigger because she took those risks along with those pivots. So, thanks.
Another great point, you notice that all the speakers we've had so far have made 2 or 3 pivots before they ended up in their final business. And Danielle started selling cell phones. Where was she selling them to start with? In diamond glass, in a windshield repair store. Then she moved into a small office and was using telemarketing to sell them. Then she moved into a food court, and then she started moving into large freestanding stores, and their last move was to go into grocery stores. So the important message here is you just have to get started. You just have to take some action and get started. And where you start isn't where you're going to end up, but it'll move you closer to where you want to be. Okay, third student.
I'm Jameson. I liked how she talked about always finding new revenue streams. I mean, she talked about the protection plan and how it turned out that became a huge revenue stream for them. Just always be looking for kind of another pivot, I guess is a good way to put it.
So you don't have any choice. Sorry about that. Okay, a couple things. All the speakers that we've had so far have started their businesses right out of college, right? So Kyle and Nathan, they started their business in school. And Dan Clark started his right when he graduated from the University of Utah. And Danielle started hers the first year that she graduated from the business school here with a degree in marketing. So the important thing is you just have to get started. Okay, you just have to act. So we have a phenomenal speaker tonight. I think you're going to love hearing Brady Murray. And we're going to let Brad introduce him formally. And then we'll turn the time over to Brady.
So it's a privilege for me to be able to introduce Brady Murray. He's such an amazing guy. As you could have seen earlier, he's the president and CEO of Mass Mutual Intermountain West. He served in several different roles within the financial services industry, starting actually while he was still in college here at Utah State. Graduated from the Huntsman School of Business. And has been on his successful career track ever since. Outside of the office, Brady's an outdoor enthusiast. He's an Ironman. He's a family man, and also a social entrepreneur, which is what he's going to talk to us more tonight. So please join me in welcoming Brady.
Thanks, Brad. It's so good to be able to be back here at Utah State. Congratulations to you. for taking time out of your busy schedule to come here tonight. I believe that I'll be able to share some pearls of wisdom that are going to be applicable to you, not only as a student, but that are going to be able to be of benefit to you as an entrepreneur, if that's what you pursue, as a business person, as a father, as a mother, and ultimately to be able to help your fellow man. And so I want to start out and I love seeing where everybody's from. And so I know I have one individual from a long ways away that's here from Armenia. Who's my guy from Armenia? Where is he? Eric, right there. So I want to see if anybody is from further away than Armenia. I knew you'd win it, Eric. Nailed it. All right, so we're going to bring it a little bit closer to home. Who here is from Idaho? Idaho, represent right here. All right, so who here is from Southeast Idaho? We're narrowing it down to the select few. So who here is from Franklin County in Southeast Idaho? We got two. Anybody here from Preston, Idaho? Boom, represent. That's what I want to share with you a little bit about my experience, because I grew up in the budding metropolis of Preston, Idaho. And when you think Preston, Idaho, what do you naturally think? And that's not what I was after. Of course, that's what I was after, Napoleon Dynamite. So I want to share with you a personal experience that I have with that movie. So let me start by saying that movie was not a fictional movie. That movie was a documentary of my senior year of high school. Let me explain. I'm not joking. I was a sophomore at Preston High. An individual moved into the town by the name of Jared Hess. He was a weird duck, right? He wore moon boots to school. He was big into karate. He liked to draw weird pictures and make movies. He had a best friend by the name of Sam Espinosa. Jared, his junior year, decided that he wanted to run for student body president. When I heard this, I remember specifically thinking there is no way in a million years you are ever going to win, because you will be running against the most popular girl in all of school by the name of Adrian Stewart. Okay. Adrian was a very popular gal. She was a cheerleader. Everybody liked her. Well, the way that we chose student body president at Preston High is they had to do an assembly, or we went to an assembly. They had to do a skit at the assembly. They gave a little speech. That didn't mean anything. It was how cool a skit they could do is who we were going to elect as student body president. Adrian went first. You guessed it. She did a dance skit with her fellow drill team people. Jared went next, and what he did blew my mind. I was in an audience just like you guys right now. Jared got up with his friends, and they did this unbelievable choreographed dance-off deal to the song Mortal Kombat. They were breaking crap on stage. Unbelievable stuff. Lights go up after this, and we give him a standing ovation and represent that, or vote that guy into student body president. So when I say Napoleon Dynamite was a documentary of my senior year of high school, I mean it, right? So enough about Preston. Let's talk a little bit about why I'm here tonight. Let me give my background first, a little more onto that. I'm going to teach you a concept tonight that is called getting caught up in a cause. So I'm going to make a promise to you. If you allow yourself to get caught up in a cause that is bigger than yourself, you will witness miracles. And I'm going to share with you some experiences that I was able to witness throughout my life. First and foremost, connect with me. I'm going to post a picture of Utah State here in a little bit when I'm done. I want to connect with you. I want to be able to share my adventures with you and what I'm going on, and I want to learn about you and learn from your adventures as well. I get emotional even looking at this picture. This is my beautiful wife. I met Andrea when we were here at Utah State. I graduated from Utah State in 2005. She graduated in 2003, I believe, because I remember she supported me those last 2 years to get me through school. Andrea grew up in Cove, which is just down the street from Preston, Idaho. I like to say Cove is a suburb of Preston. I'm going to share with you a little experience here. When Andrea and I were married, we had our first child, and her name is Brinley. She is my princess. She's 12 years old now. After Andrea and I had been married and we had Brinley, we were expecting our second child. What I found out was my firstborn son. As an athlete growing up in Preston, quote, athlete, right? If you grow up in Preston, you have to be an athlete. Otherwise, they won't have enough people to fill the team. So as an athlete growing up in Preston and expecting and knowing that I was going to have my son soon, I had all of those aspirations that you can imagine of having your firstborn son come into your world. I could see him playing baseball. I could see him playing football. I could see him going to the high school prom. I could see him getting married someday. I could see him going to Utah State and becoming an Aggie. I had all these wonderful visions. And so the day that my son was born started very conventional, just like what you would see in the movies. Started by my wife waking me up at 2 o'clock in the morning and saying those infamous words that we all want to hear when we're expecting a baby, right? And she said, I think it's time. I jump out of bed, grab our bags. I'm like, let's go to the hospital. Let's go do this. I couldn't wait to be able to meet my son. She said, look, it's going to be a long day. Go take a shower, get ready, give me just a minute, and then we'll go to the hospital. So I dance into the shower, do my thing, come back out, so excited to be able to take Andrea to the hospital. And she is on the bed in full-blown labor. Now's the time I heard the words that you don't want to hear in that circumstance, which is, I think I waited too long to go to the hospital. Being from Preston, Idaho, I immediately jump into Superman mode. I run into the garage. I grab my headlamp and my Leatherman. I get ready to deliver this kid. All right? Fortunately, it was just a contraction, and it passed, and I was able to put the headlamp away, and we made it to the hospital successfully. Got to the hospital and was able to witness a very courageous and a very inspiring delivery by my wife. I was so proud of her. And before I knew it, there he was, my newborn son. Nash was born at about 10 o'clock that day, or that morning, and I was doing all the things that you do as a proud father. I was taking pictures. I was doing everything that you do, right? Making a little video. And I remember, though, something was off just a little bit. I remember the doctor and the nurses were kind of whispering back and forth. And they had a concerned look on their face. And they would look at me, and then they would look away. About 10 minutes after Nash was born, the doctor came up to me, and he put his arm around me. And he said, Brady, we believe that your son has Down syndrome. This was the first that I had heard of this. I wasn't expecting it, and it absolutely scared me to death. I didn't know what this meant. I remember thinking of all of the things that I wanted Nash to be able to accomplish and all those dreams that I had for my son and wondering if those were going to become real. I didn't know what my life was going to look like. I didn't know what Andrea's life was going to look like. And then I got really scared, because I knew that I had to go over and tell my wife what that doctor just told me. I took a couple minutes to compose myself. I walked over to the bed where Andrea was laying, and I knelt down and I leaned and whispered in her ear, Andrea, the doctor told me that they think Nash has Down syndrome. She didn't skip a beat. It didn't matter to her. All she cared about was that she got to hold her son and that he was healthy and that he was happy. And I knew from that moment forward that everything was going to be all right. In fact, I felt that this kid was going to be somebody very, very special, that he was going to open up opportunities for our family that we never would have been able to experience otherwise. And I witnessed in my first inkling, or I witnessed that first part of being able to get caught up in a cause that was bigger than myself. And truly, I was being prepared to be able to witness a miracle. Fast forward a few years to where we are now with Nash. Nash just turned 10 years old this last year. And he is my rock. He is my best friend. I love this little guy. He's an absolute superstar. Everywhere I take him, I'm so proud to be able to say that I am Nash's dad. We named his middle name after me. And if you ask him and you say, Nash, what's your name? And he says, it's Nash Brady Murray. And I say, is it Nash Murray? He goes, no, it's Nash Brady Murray. And he loves it. And I love that he's so passionate about wanting to have his dad's name. It was through this association of being involved in the Down syndrome community that I learned of something that was very, very unique. In being involved with the community, I learned that there are many cultures throughout the world that when a child is born with a special need, like Down syndrome, that when that child is born, they're immediately placed into an orphanage. And that's where they stay, typically the first 4 to 5 years of their life. After they've been in the orphanage for typically 5 years, they get to an age where they will transfer them to an adult mental institution, and that's where they'll stay the rest of their life. Oftentimes, when these children are transferred to an adult mental institution, they pass away within the first few months because of the circumstances. I started to research this when I found this out, and I found pictures like this. I saw pictures of these kids that were tucked away in these little orphanages and these mental institutions that were the same age as my son, that were not realizing that full measure of what they were put here on the earth to be able to do. I looked at it and I continued to research it, and I thought there's got to be a way that we can help these kids. And I started to look into it further, and I found out that there's a lot of families that are ready and willing to adopt these kids. They want to adopt these kids, and I saw these after pictures on what it looks like for these children to be able to be adopted and literally saved from the grasp of death and come into a family, and to be able to contribute to a family the same way that my son is contributing to my family right now. When I saw that there was hope, I decided that we were going to go and be able to try and help these kids. So I had a strategy. I found out that there's many, many families ready and willing to adopt these kids. The only thing that's standing in their way is the financial cost of adopting internationally. You see, on average, an international adoption costs costs $30,000 to $40,000 to be able to pull one of these things off. And for most people, most families, they couldn't be able to do that. But I found out that if there was an adoption grant available that even met them halfway, $15,000 or even $20,000, that they'd have the courage to be able to go forward and adopt. So we decided that we were going to choose a child, and then we were going to start fundraising for that child. The child that we chose, his name is Eli. Eli was tucked away in an orphanage in Lithuania. I had inquired about Eli. I found out I was the first person in 4 years in his entire life that had inquired about adopting Eli. In fact, the adoption agency, or the orphanage for that matter, said he's not even available to adopt. Who would want to adopt Eli? He has Down syndrome. And I said, we will find somebody to be able to adopt Eli. I had no idea how we were going to do this. It was during Christmas of 2011, and I started to spread the word around. And I said, we're trying to raise $15,000, maybe even $20,000 for Eli. And I witnessed my first miracle. I witnessed that within 30 days, we had rounded up $20,000 for Eli. We put that adoption grant out public, and I witnessed my second miracle. In 30 days after the adoption grant was placed, there was a family that came forward in Indiana and said, that's my son. We are going to adopt Eli. I've since been able to hold this kid in my arms. And I've seen firsthand what it means to be able to save one of those special children that have been put here on the earth. Eli is a very, very loving kid. You can see here that he's given me a hug. I was very emotional when I met him, and he actually came running to me and he gave me a hug. He'd never met me before, and he said, it's okay. It's going to be okay. He was doing what he's put on the earth to do, right? Another experience that I had shortly after the experience with Eli actually is related to Utah State. Every year, Mike and his group takes students to go to different countries, to developing countries, and be able to serve as interns. This year, there happened to be an opportunity to go to Peru for me as an alumni to be able to go and help them go to Peru and be able to help them with this project. Well, while I was down there, I thought, what the heck? I'm going to take a couple of extra days. I'm in Peru. I know that there's got to be a kid somewhere who's in these circumstances. I'm going to see if I can't go and find him. My travels took me up north of Trujillo about 6 hours to a little town called Fereñafe. I found a tiny little orphanage that was run by a couple of Catholic nuns. I made arrangements to be able to go and see the children that were in there. There were 30 children that were in that orphanage. Most of them were babies or 1 or 2 years old. But there was one little girl who was 4, whose name was Maria. And I could see that she had Down syndrome. I asked the nun, what's going to happen to Maria? I said, she's the oldest child here. What happens? And she said, I have no idea. We haven't ever had a child like this before. I guess they'll probably just ship her off to Lima here in the next little bit. I don't know. I really don't see a family coming and adopting her. All these other kids are obviously going to get adopted before her. And I looked at the nun and I said, we're going to find a family for Maria. I'll share the experience on how we found that family in just a second, but I wanted to share with you a picture of Maria here on the Utah State campus just a few years ago when we brought her here for a benefit concert called Starry Night. She came here from Tennessee. She flew in from Tennessee with her mom, and I got to see the before Maria and I got to see the after Maria, and I can tell you that she is definitely a contributing member to her family and that she is a tremendous blessing for her family. So, after we did this, we had a couple success stories. My wife's like, all right, we got to get really serious about this. Let's find new ways to be able to go and raise money for these kids. And I said, I'm game. What ideas do you got? And she said, hey, you've always wanted to do an Ironman Triathlon. Why don't you do an Ironman Triathlon to raise funding for these kids? And I looked right at her and I said, why don't you do an Ironman Triathlon? For those of you that don't know what an Ironman Triathlon is, an Ironman is you start the day out by swimming 2.4 miles. You then get on a bike and you bike 112 miles. And then you finish off the day, the race, I should say, with doing a marathon, with running a marathon, 26.2 miles. You have to complete this in 17 hours or you're not called an Ironman. So basically, from sunup to sundown, you are full on going out trying to accomplish this race. Very, very few individuals have been able to accomplish this. And I admit, at the time, I had aspired to become an Ironman. In fact, I had actually done a few triathlons with the thought of maybe someday becoming an Ironman prior to this orphanage and orphan idea. You know the triathlons that you slide down the slide, swim to the end of the pool, you run around the block, and then you ride your bike around the block and you run to the end of the street? Those were the triathlons that I did, and I called myself a triathlete, right? And so I actually even aspired, and I thought, you know what, if I want to do a full Ironman someday, again, this is all prior to Andrea suggesting this to me, I wanted to be able to go and try and do a half Ironman. I thought, hey, if I could do a half Ironman, maybe I could someday become an Ironman. But let me be honest, why I wanted to be an Ironman at the time. I wanted to hear my name, go across the finish line, and hear the announcer say, Brady Murray, you are an Ironman. I wanted to put the sticker in the back of my truck that said I was an Ironman. I wanted to wear the finisher's t-shirt around town so that everybody knew that I was an Ironman. The opposite of getting caught up in a cause that's bigger than yourself. So like I said, I tried a half Ironman with this purpose. And this was the end result. I almost died. So this was a bad thing. Andrea took this picture of me after I had finished a 70.3, a half Ironman, which is basically all that distance cut in half. And literally, I could not walk. I thought I had broke both of my knees. And I was like, I am done. This whole idea of ever becoming an Ironman is nuts, crazy. I will never do it. So a few years later, when Andrea said, Brady, you could do an Ironman to save these kids, it scared me to death. And I thought about those words for a few days when she challenged me to do that. And after a few days, I thought to myself, I probably won't be able to do an Ironman for myself, but I know I can do an Ironman to help one of these kids, to be able to save one of these kids. And so I immediately started to train to become an Ironman. My training was intense. It was wild. It was crazy. Still to this day, I wonder about that. On a weekly basis, I would swim 10,000 yards. I would bike 200 miles. I would run 40 miles. Most of this was done in the early hours prior to going to work and having a full-time job, and we had 3 children at the time. This ride here that was in the dark, I remember I talked a friend into doing this with me as far as going and training, and we left the house at 3:30 on a Saturday morning so that we could get our 100-mile bike ride in to be back in time by 10 o'clock to go to my son's ball game. It was intense, and there's no way that I would have been able to go through this experience in training for this race had I not allowed myself to get caught up in a cause that was bigger than myself. I got into shape, though. And it worked. This cause started to really drive me. So the time came for me to finally get to decide what Ironman I was going to go and do. Now, those of you that are aware of triathlons, there's actually hundreds of Ironman triathlons all throughout the world that anybody could sign up for. You could sign up for any of these Ironmans right now, except for one. There's one Ironman that you can't just sign up for. In fact, it's the original Ironman, the Ironman that is held in Kona, Hawaii, called the Ironman World Championship. Many of you have probably seen the feature stories that are being done on the weekends on NBC of individuals that go and do an Ironman triathlon in Kona, Hawaii. It was the pinnacle. Essentially, you had to be a professional triathlete or a Kennedy, and I was neither of them, right? So right in this moment of deciding which Ironman I wanted to do, I witnessed another miracle. I got a phone call one July afternoon that came from a guy who said, "Brady, you don't know who I am. My name is Rob White. We have a lot in common. You see, I'm an Ironman triathlete, and I have a son who has Down syndrome." He then went on to say, "I am also the CEO of the company, MyList, that is the presenting sponsor of the 2012 Ironman World Championship. I've heard your story. I've read about you. I want to invite you to come to Kona, Hawaii. I want you to race in the Ironman World Championship, and we're going to feature your story on NBC, and we're going to tell the world about these kids, and we're going to save a bunch of kids." I remember when I hung up the phone, I just cried, because how could you plan this? How could you plan this and saying, "Hey, I'm going to go try and help these kids and train really hard and hope that they put me on NBC"? There's no way that I could have been able to plan that, right? But I promise you, if you allow yourself to get caught up in a cause that is bigger than yourself, you too will witness miracles. The day finally came. It was October of 2012. And that was the swim start. Me and my 2,000 best friends that were all professional triathletes ready to kick my butt, right? You see me there? I'm there. The cannon goes off and you go out and it is absolute chaos. It is a war zone. It is intense. I'd never experienced anything like it before. After going out, you swim straight out into the ocean. You go around this crazy looking pirate ship and you swim all the way back in, 1.2 miles out, 1.2 miles back in. You get out of the water and I was already starting to feel a little fatigued. And I still had to go ride my bike 112 miles and run a marathon. I jumped on my bike and I remember going out on the Queen K Highway. Any of you that have been to Kona, Hawaii can relate to what I'm experiencing. Hawaii, when I hear Hawaii, I think like tropical breezes, some pina coladas, virgin of course, and some hula dancers doing the hula dance or something. It was nothing like that. It was lava fields, and it was hot, and it was windy, and that's where we rode our bike, was on the Queen K Highway. I rode out 65 miles and turned around and started coming back to the city center. I'm going to share with you a little insight that only us Ironmen know, right? So I'm going to tell you something that's unique. So this is, again, an all-day race, and you're drinking and eating the whole day. Like, imagine exercising all day, how much you actually have to drink. Well, what happens when you drink a lot? You got to go to the bathroom. And when you got to go to the bathroom and you're in a race, well, you can't just stop and go to the bathroom. You're racing, so what do? You just go. So I was on the bike, and the best place to go is always on a downhill, right? Because you don't have to pedal. So I'm going downhill, and I had this thought like, now would be a good time to do this. And right as I had that thought, the athlete right in front of me had the same thought. And I got a nice yellow shower. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I did what any young man from Preston, Idaho would do. I got right in front of this athlete, and then I did my business. It was good times, good times. It took me a little over 5 hours to be able to complete the 112 miles. I was already almost 7 hours into the race when I got off the bike, and I had to run a marathon. I remember stepping off the bike, and it was like Armageddon all over again. I flashed back to Boise when I couldn't walk. My knees were just not working. And the thought of having to put one foot after another and actually run 26.2 miles was crazy. I remember coming out of the chute where I dropped the bike off, and I remember seeing my wife. And I remember seeing my son. And I remember thinking, I'm going to do this. I will die before I stop. I will die before I don't finish this race for these little kids. I continued to run, and it just took forever. It seemed like it was death. I got into a place that was called the Energy Lab, that you make a turn. It's around mile 17. And you make this turn down into this area. This is a picture of the Energy Lab, and it is just hot. It is the middle of the day, towards the latter part of the afternoon. And I'm seeing all of these professional triathletes, some of these best athletes in the world, laying on the side of the road. It looked like a morgue. They were hooked up with IVs. There was ambulances. And I just kept thinking, don't stop, because you're going to be one of them. I went and I continued. I remember getting to mile 25, and you crest this little hill. And the last mile, you run downhill into the city. And I remember being emotional. I remember thinking how thankful I was to be able to experience that moment, to be able to represent these kids that I was representing. The finisher's chute came next, and it was filled with people. I remember running down the finisher's chute, and in 10 hours and 51 minutes, I crossed that finish line. And I remember hearing the announcer say, Brady Murray, you are an Ironman. And I remember in my head finishing that sentence and saying, Brady Murray, you are an Ironman for orphans with Down syndrome. I'm going to share with you now the video that was played on NBC. It was played all throughout the world, and I'll share with you a little bit of the aftermath of what came from that. So let's cue that up right now.
For over 3 decades, the big island of Hawaii has been home to the world's most grueling day in sport, the Ironman World Championship. Hundreds of thousands of athletes around the globe are driven by the same goal, to earn a spot on the start line in Kona. Today, only 1,900 have that chance. This is Brady Murray. Today is not about him.
In July of 2007, my son was born, and about 10 minutes after, they told us that he has Down syndrome, and it changed my world. As I've got to know my son, I've realized that Down syndrome is not a bad thing by any means. It's a very special thing. He's a very loving child. He has a way to be able to connect with people in ways that nobody else has ever been able to do.
Brady's courage has inspired Ironman finisher and MyList CEO Rob White, whose son Alex bonded with Murray over a shared love of triathlon. Together, MyList and Brady continue to drive awareness around a very personal cause.
As a father of a child with Down syndrome, I had no idea that there were orphans throughout the entire world that are essentially abandoned at birth simply because of their disability. And knowing that literally there are hundreds, if not thousands, of orphans with Down syndrome throughout the world, and seeing this as an opportunity to be able to race for them, I jumped at it. And I thought, you know what? I may not be able to do an Ironman for myself, but I know I can do one for these kids. I know from experience, as a father of a son with Down syndrome, that the biggest blessing is not the child getting a family. It's the family that's going to get that child. They'll receive the biggest blessing in this. And that's ultimately the core of why I do what I do.
With nightfall descending on the Big Island, final challenges await all those age group triathletes who have one goal, one focus, to hear those magic words. As the parent of a Down syndrome child, Brady Murray knows the true meaning of this personal feat. He's raising awareness and raising money, providing an opportunity for a Down syndrome orphan.
It's going to mean life. It's going to mean hope. It's going to mean that ultimately a family is going to be united with a child.
And through the generosity of My List, this hope will become a reality. They have pledged the full adoption cost for a child. Because of Brady's determination, one of these children will be finding a home.
That's why we do Ironman. That's ultimately what it means by anything is possible.
Thank you. That money, that check that I got, that adoption grant, that $20,000, do you know who that went to? Do you remember that little girl in Peru that I had found just a few months before I did this race? When I crossed the finish line, that was a surprise. They had that giant check there. I remember thinking that we did it. We got an adoption grant for this little girl. We advertised that, and before I left the island of Hawaii, I got a phone call from that family in Tennessee saying that this little girl is our girl and we're going to adopt her. And so again, it's amazing to see the miracles that come from this. There were other miracles that came from this race and this amazing exposure that we had on NBC. After I raced this race, I had athletes from all over the world contact me and say, I race in these races. I want to do what you do. Let's go save these kids together. The entrepreneurial spirit in my mind said, we need to start a nonprofit organization. We started Racing for Orphans with Down Syndrome, or RODS, with the intention of helping more and more kids. Right now, we have had over 400 athletes race for RODS throughout the world in races that are amazing, amazing races, and races all the way from neighborhood 5Ks to more athletes that have raced in the Ironman World Championship. From these athletes and from the efforts that they have put forward, we are just shy of reaching the $1 million mark. In fact, I expect that this next month will surpass $1 million raised for orphans with Down syndrome. Most importantly, though, we've helped 34 kids to be able to find a loving home. When I share this presentation and I put this slide up there, it motivates me more than anything because I want that number to be 340. And 3,400 and 34,000. Ultimately, the vision of RODS is to be able to find a home for every single orphan children or child that has Down syndrome. That's what we're going to continue to do until we have a home for every single one of these kids. I get a lot of questions now because that was in 2012, and as you know, RODS is moving along, but I get a lot of questions now where people say, hey, so what's the last 5 years look like? And I'll tell you, it's been pretty wild. We had another child, so that brought us up to a total of 4, which that's wild, right? Some of you probably came from a family of 4 or more, and so you can relate pretty well. Andrea and I were enjoying our time as parents. We had a successful business. Things were really good. But we felt in our heart about a year and a half ago that we needed to do more. I don't know how to best describe it other than simply we needed to do more. We sought out inspiration on what that more represented, and we felt in our heart that we should actually adopt. Now, having 4 kids and adopting another kid, that was pretty crazy. But we felt strongly that that's what we were supposed to do. we started to research. We wanted to adopt a baby in the United States. A typical child is what we were hoping for. I kind of wanted a boy. She kind of wanted a girl. It was fun. Well, that inkling continued to grow in our heart. And that inkling said, no, you should adopt another child that has special needs. And the thought of that time in my life of adding another child to our family that has Down syndrome, as much as I love Nash, was hard to be able to grasp that and to think through that. As I pondered it more and I thought about it longer, I thought, you know what? That's exactly what we're supposed to do. We started to look into this. We felt led to China, of all places. I had no desire to go to China for sure. We started to look in China, and we learned about a little boy in China who they found on a street corner when they guesstimate was about 6 months old. We learned that he had been in that orphanage his entire life, and they guesstimate that he was around 4, maybe 4.5 years old. He seemed healthy enough, other than he had Down syndrome, and so my wife and I decided that we were going to pursue this little boy. And this is a picture of him. We call him Cooper. That's not his Chinese name. Andrea and I flew over to China, and we met this little guy. This was actually the day that we met Cooper, and it was a match made in heaven, at least for my wife. The day that they brought Cooper and introduced us to us, he ran straight to Andrea and gave her a great big hug and sat on her lap. And then he just looked at me. I went over with a toy and I offered it to Cooper, and he gave me one of these. I knew I had a little bit of work to do with Cooper. We brought him with us. We went back to our hotel room, and on the way back, we passed a Pizza Hut. And I thought, I got an idea. I ran down to the Pizza Hut. I grabbed a pizza. I came back, and I said, Cooper, look what we got you. And from that day on, that boy's been my biggest fan. Cooper and I are very close. My family and I are pretty low-key. My other 4 children are pretty low-key. And I would say that Cooper has definitely added some spunk to the family. I would say that he is a life-of-the-party type of individual. This is a picture. I'll actually come back to that. But this is a picture of Cooper with our little boy, or with our boys and our little girl. This is a picture of him on a special day for us that demonstrates that life of the party that Cooper is. One of the cherished moments that we had in China, and something that I felt was very necessary, is I asked the orphanage, I said, where did you guys find Cooper? Take me back to the place that you guys found Cooper. And they did. This is the exact place where my son was left when he was 6 months old. And to go back with him to that moment and to be able to have that redemption come to him with his new family, with his new parents that love him, and they're taking him home. That was a very, very special experience for us. As I said, Coop's been a big part of our family. People always ask us as well, with me and Andrea, so like, do you race still? Like what happens? How does that work? And I said, I retired from triathlon, at least for a season, and I picked up a more easy sport in running marathons. And last year, I actually talked my wife into running a marathon, and this shows the type of athlete that Andrea is. I said, Hun, like, if we're going to run a marathon, we got to qualify for the Boston Marathon. And she said, well, I'll do my best. She actually did qualify for the Boston Marathon, and together we ran the Boston Marathon this last year in 2017. It was my favorite race that I've ever done because I actually ran it side by side with Andrea the entire time, which was a lot of fun for me. I remember I felt like this was my opportunity to give back to Andrea because she did so much for me to be able to allow me to train for all of those races. And so from mile 1, I was just like in her ear, you got this. You can do this. And I'm just encouraging her. And I'd run ahead a little bit and get some water and bring it back and run with her. And anything that she needed, I was going to be there for her. Well, in the Boston Marathon, you have a place that's around mile 19 called Heartbreak Hill. So you're 19 miles into it, and you just climb for about 1.5 miles up this giant hill. And I thought, how big can it be in Boston? But it's a big hill, right? And so right when we got to Heartbreak Hill, we're right at the bottom of it, and I'm like, this is my chance to be a hero. I'm going to basically carry Andrea up this thing. So I'm just like in her ear, you got this. This is why you train so much. And she's just like, heart attack serious, just running forward, just not even paying attention to me. And we get about halfway up the hill, and she stops and looks up to me and says, I think it's time to stop talking now. I'm like, I'm good. So I went and ran ahead a little bit and just kind of let her do her thing, because I've been there. I know what it's like in that moment to be able to push through it. But that was a really special experience for us to be able to do that. I'm going to share one more experience with you that I think might resonate with the world, or with the stage in life where you're at right now. This is a picture of my company, and these are the people that I work with, and this is my leadership team up there. And I want to share with you how I actually got this opportunity to take over Mass Mutual Intermountain West in 2013. So if you remember, I ran Kona in October of 2012. In January of 2013, just a few months later, I got a phone call from my friend down here in Salt Lake City. I was living in Boise at the time, that said, hey, the Mass Mutual opportunity for the president position just opened up. You need to go and you need to get that job. That's your job. Well, my vision, my goal in my professional career was someday I would get to be a president of a firm. And for me, that someday was probably in my 40s or maybe my 50s. And in a perfect world, that someday would be me moving back to Salt Lake City and me getting to run a major company, not just a little one, but a big one, like a Mass Mutual. So when I heard this, I was 34 at the time, and I thought, I got to go for it, right? And I thought, man, in the back of my mind, I'm like, there's probably no way, but I got to go for it. I had a contact back in Boston that I reached out to that was in the industry, and I said, look, Randy was his name. I said, Randy, this is the job. Do you know anybody at Mass Mutual that you can call to get me an interview? And he said in this like thick Boston accent, right? Like, yeah, don't worry about it. I got somebody. I'm going to get it. And so he calls me back. He said, I got a phone interview for you tomorrow at 8:30. Don't blow it. And he hung up, right? I'm like, no pressure, right? So I get this phone call from this regional individual for Mass Mutual, and he was over the West, and it was a 10-minute phone call. The first 5 minutes was me telling him about myself and why I thought I was a good candidate, and the next 5 minutes was him telling me why I was absolutely not a good candidate, and better luck next time, kid, right? It was one of those conversations. So I can't say I was crushed, because I wasn't really expecting it, to be honest. But I hung up the phone and I reached out to Randy. And Randy, I told him what happened. And as only Randy could do, he swore a bunch and he said, no, that's not right. You're the guy for that job. I'm going to go to work on this. I'm like, hey, have at it. Well, you know what Randy did? Randy took that video that I just showed you. And that video was actually playing on NBC at the time. And he emailed that to the CEO of the Fortune 100 Mass Mutual, the corporate Fortune 100. And he said, I know you have an opportunity, you're looking for somebody in Utah to be the president of the Intermountain West firm. This is your guy. And just sent him that video. That video, as you know, didn't say anything about my professional qualifications. It just told a story. The next day, I got a phone call from the corporate headquarters, and they asked me to fly out to Massachusetts. For the next 3 months, I interviewed for this position, and I gave it everything that I possibly could. I found out in April of that year that I was going to be the new president of Mass Mutual. How could I have planned that? How could I have said, I'm going to go and save a bunch of kids and run an Ironman to be able to get me my dream job? You couldn't have planned that. But I promise you, if you allow yourself to get caught up in a cause that is bigger than yourself, you will witness similar miracles. I know that because I've experienced that myself. I thank you guys for letting me come out and spend some time with you. We've got a little time to be able to do some Q&A if you want to do it. If not, we'll just go eat some Maggie ice cream. I heard that they got some on campus. So any questions at all that I can answer for you? We have a few minutes. Let's use our time wisely. Nothing? There's a couple over here. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so if you had like one perfect wish for what Rob's could be, like, what is your vision? You kind of mentioned what your ultimate goal of Rob's is, but if there's like one thing right now that would just accelerate that to the max, what would it be?
If you guys could experience what it was like to see Maria in a crib and then to see her with her mom, that's what I would want you and everybody to be able to experience. If everybody had the chance to experience that, I am confident that there would be no orphans, not just Down syndrome, but no orphans in this world. Because that is a priceless, priceless gift that I was given. That's what I would want. Good question. Was there another one? I'll repeat the question if we need to. I kind of blew it on the last one.
So for us college students, we have great aspirations to do incredible things, such as you've done, help a lot of people. And how should we find the balance of providing for our families and making sure that we have, good hard skills that make us marketable and desirable to companies, so we can provide on that aspect, as well as being able to be caught up in a cause, like you're saying, and do those things to help others?
It's a fantastic question. I get it, guys. I've been there in my life where you guys are at right now. And at the time, when I was a full-time college student and full-time employment and have a child, I felt like there was absolutely no possible way that I could get any busier. And guess what? I'm a lot busier now than I was when I was a student. And this is a principle that I've learned, that we are all entrusted 24 hours in a day. Every day, we are all entrusted 24 hours in a day. And if you look closely at how you utilize that 24 hours, in fact, give an accounting of what you do with that 24 hours each and every day, you will find that you have the time. You'll find that you have the time to be able to be a great dad, to be a great husband, to be a great mother, to be a great student, to be able to serve in your church capacities if that's something that you're doing, to be able to have a lot of fun on the weekends and still allow yourself to get caught up in a cause. I know that. I absolutely know that. Okay, good question. Yes, sir. Oh, we skipped you. You yell it out right now. I'll repeat it.
So with us finding a good cause, what traits we recommend that we see a cause, what makes a good cause?
Yeah, that's a very personal question. The question was, what traits make a good cause? What traits do you find in a cause that allow you to get caught up? A principle on this is that which you desire the most, you always get. If you want to find a cause that you can become passionate about, and you truly desire that, and desire that with the deepest core of your heart, and you're willing to do whatever it takes to go and find it, I promise you, you will find it. And you will find the cause that you personally are supposed to get caught up in. That you personally have been put here at Utah State right now in 2018 to get caught up in. It's out there. They need you. Question back there.
How did you come to the realization that you needed to create this company or this organization to support what you wanted to do?
Yep, great question. It was 2011. I felt in my heart that I needed to do more. I just felt it. I was busy as ever, but I just felt it. I needed to do more. And so I sought out opportunities to do more. And guess what? Because that is what I wanted more than anything, that's exactly what was given to me. I'll never forget it. The idea for rods, the inspiration for rods came early one Sunday morning, and it was as clear could be. It came in an instant like a light switch, and it was as clear as could clear be. It was a special, special, special experience. Thank you.
So if you could go back and talk to yourself as a college student, what advice would you give yourself? Like what qualities and traits would you tell yourself to develop at that point?
That's a great question. The question was, if I could go back and be a college student again, what advice would I give myself? What qualities and attributes and traits would I instill in myself? The first thing I would say is go to bed early and get up early. I get it's hard in college, but do it. Right now, I go to bed at 9:30. It's going to be hard tonight to make 9:30, right? You get in bed a little later. And I get up at 4:56. Do you know why I get up at 4:56? Because that gives me a 4-minute advantage on those chumps that get up at 5. I'm not kidding you. Okay. Now, I get it. You're in college. You're probably not going to go to bed at 9:30. You're not going to get up at 5. But if you would follow this in your college career, this habit, then I promise it will make a difference. And here's what I do in the morning. When I get up at 4:56, I grab some breakfast and I spend an hour, a little over an hour, and I read something inspirational. And it's really quiet. And I'm in my little home office, and I read something that inspires the heart, that feeds my spirit. And then I spend time, and I think about how fortunate I am. I think about my kids. I think about my wife. I think about just how blessed I've been. And I give thanks for those blessings. At about 6:15, I go and I work out. And I work out for about an hour. I get done, I shower. About this time, we have some more breakfast with my children. We will read together, we'll pray together, and then we'll go on our day. I come home, I have dinner with my family at 6:30. We spend the evening together. I do my best to stay off my phone. I do my best to not watch TV. And then I go to bed with my sweetheart at 9:30. If I had those attributes when I was in college, and again, it doesn't have to be exactly like that, but if I followed a similar pattern with it when I was in college, I know that I would be a lot further along and that I would have a lot more opportunities afforded me than I do right now. Good question. Any other questions? That's a good question. I'm going to answer that, but it's not the answer that you're probably looking for. Here's the thing, guys. My firm has been in Utah for 125 years. We manage over $2 billion in assets. We have just shy of 20,000 clients. I've got 51 financial advisors that work for my firm. My most tenured advisor has 52 years with the firm. He's been an advisor in Utah for 52 years. MassMutual is a Fortune 100 company. Fortune 100, one of the biggest in the entire world. And I'm telling you that all of that has nothing to do with the success that you would have if you were a part of MassMutual. All of that is secondary. Do you want to know what the special sauce is for MassMutual in Salt Lake City? It's under this notion that the person you become is determined by the books you read and the people that you surround yourself with. I am who I am right now because of these people that I get to surround myself with on a daily basis. They are the ones that make us what we are today, not the fancy credentials and the assets and so forth. Okay. We'll go one more question.
As an athlete, how would you get involved with rods?
Great question. Go to the website, rods.org. We need you. We need you. Okay? And I don't care if you guys are Ironman triathletes or you have a desire to do a 5K and have never done it. We need you. Go sign up. Last thing, connect with me, guys. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I will do anything in my power to help you to be able to progress. The last thought. We are all temporary stewards of the resources that we have been entrusted. And someday we will get to give an accounting as to what we have done with those resources. Thanks for letting me be with you tonight.